Welcome back, everyone, to Poppin' Often with Lofton. Today, we're going to be going over Zero's skill tree, what it does, how it do, when it do. If you guys enjoy the content and want to help support the channel and join that Poppin' Often with Lofton club, click that join button down below. You get perks for comments, you get perks for streams, and you also get early access to my content and members-only content. I mean, the rewards are limitless. But let's get started. I'm hyped. Let's go ahead and get into it. There's a lot to unpack with Zero, so make sure you buckle in for the ride. Azrael, once again, thank you for becoming a member. I just wanted to shout you out in my video as well. I know I shouted you out within my post, but shout me out in my video as well. Let's get into it. Zero is pretty much the only character in the game that doesn't always have his weapon out. He has to manually take his weapon out, or the skill will take it out for you. So we have three types of forces here. We have Classic Force, we have Ice Force, we have Fire Force. We'll go over each of them real quick. So here is Classic Force. Here is Ice Force. As you see, it freezes them. Here is Fire Force. Now, as you notice, every single time he pulls out his weapon, he uses an ability. Every single time you want to use an ability, he pulls out his weapon. How you get around this is you can pull his weapon out by using XX. We'll talk about his stances in a bit. You can cancel the animation of that pulling out the weapon and extending it if you just tap it. So here's an example of what it looks like, him just using it. Now here's an example of actually pulling your weapon out and using your ability. See the difference there? So this is why you want to pull out your weapon first and then use an ability. You cancel the animation and it comes out way quicker. Now if you're in the dungeons, it's a little bit different. You might want to gauge your situation because you actually get the invincibility frames from pulling his weapon out. In PvP, you want to pull your weapon out so it's cast a little bit quicker, but once again, that's kind of to each their own. Sometimes you want the invincibility frame, sometimes you don't. It's really up to you on how you would, technically play the situation. Now, these will increase the hit in the range, so you'll fire it further and you'll do more hits with Classic Force. Ice Force, you'll increase how long they are frozen and once again the range, and then with Fire Force, you'll increase how long they burn and then the range of the ability coming out. Now we have an ability called Loss. It's just a regular tech ability. Remember, tech abilities are the ones that don't have a camera zoom in. They're just a tech ability. You press it and it comes out and it works. There are three versions of this. The regular version is just a damage attack. The second version is it absorbs their HP. The third version absorbs their AP. I wouldn't recommend putting really any points into any of this. I would save the points until you're like for sure, hey, I want this type. I want this. I want this. Don't just randomly willy-nilly put your stuff in. You can put it into better things early on than just spamming everything. So I wouldn't recommend doing that unless you really, really enjoy an ability. Then we have pretty much his Triple Bash, his first bar. Then we have Grand X, his second bar. Then we have Bleeding Gash, his third bar. And then I'll add the text so you guys can see it, okay? Then we also have sword stances. So you have SS, which is sword stance. I like to say standard sword stance, but there's three S's there, so hey. Then you have DS, which is defensive sword stance. And then you have OS, which is offensive sword stance. You don't get offensive sword stance until second job. All right, so let's just look at the text real quick. So once again, he'll take his weapon out and he'll do it. Now it didn't look like that before. That's actually a lot better looking now than it was before, but you're not invincible, which is why you would take your weapon out first and then do it. So that way you're not stuck. Once again, if you're using an ability, you are invincible, but you're not invincible if you're using a tech ability. Same thing with his Loss. Just stabs it into him. Then we have his first ability. Then we have his second ability. Then we have his third ability. Now, one interesting thing to note about Zero is that his jump attacks actually lift the character off the ground. So if you are in a corner, whether it be here, whether it be here, whether it be over here, you'll be able to catch them and basically jump attack and they'll float all the way until you can't do it anymore. Same thing for here. So if I actually hit her right here, you see what I mean? You could really get some nasty stuff going in if you can manage to do it properly. Now here are the sword attacks. So XX is to take your weapon out. You actually get a buff of attack damage. You don't get that buff if you don't pull it out. So if I go like that, I don't have the buff. I have to take it out manually, which is very important if you use an ability, how we talked about, right? If we take it out first and then use an ability, it's more damage. So that hit for 60. Let's see how much it hits without it. 57. So you would take your weapon out first and then use an ability if you want more damage. Like I said, if you want more frames, then obviously let them do it. So here are the sword attacks. So we have just regular ZZZ. Then we have ZZ down. Then you have one more, which is just Z up. Just like that, it slams the ground. You can combo these into succession. So you can do ZZZ, down Z, and then up Z. Now, one thing to note about that combo is the down Z where he spins. It can be inputted during your combo of this. You cannot up Z until your combo is finished. He has to reset to his original like posture before you can do up Z. I don't know if that's a thing that always been there. I never really paid attention to it because I always played Zero. So yeah, maybe I just got used to it. But just keep that in mind. You can't really spam like that. You'd have to wait. So if I try to do it right now, you see it doesn't come out until he's done back to his regular posture. So keep that in mind when you're using his jump attack there. We also have the defensive stance. So this is where we would press XX down. When you're doing your defensive stances and your offensive stances, you want to do XX and then down, down at the same time. So it'd be X down, and then when you're going to OS, it'd be X left, or X right, whichever way you're facing. It's really finicky if you don't, and it's just a lot better. And then if you want to go back to your regular stance within your stance, just tap it again and he'll go back to normal. These are the things that we have. So we have the way to swap from side to side, as you see. We also have a up Z, which kind of lifts them up. We also have a down Z. And then we have OS stance. So I'm just going to talk about it right now. It's only in second job. You don't get OS stance in first job, okay? You also don't get a couple of the defensive moves in first job. It's only second job. But I'm going to talk about them all right now to get it out the way so we don't have to worry about it later on. So the OS stance. As you see, it adds a slice effect to Zero. Now, one thing I noticed is the slice effect is delayed. You'll hit him, and then the effect will come out. I think this might be to reduce juggling. The fact that you used to be able to like really lock somebody and they couldn't get out unless you wanted them to, is gone. They have the ability to move, and if you finish your combo, you'll knock them away. Even if you do a critical, you'll knock them up. There's nothing like... You can't juggle them anymore, which is a very, very good thing because it was really broken and I didn't like it. So I like that they nerfed it. I know a lot of players that play Grand Chase get mad when their characters are nerfed, but I know that they're nerfed for a good reason. I don't care what they did with Zero. They made him feel better to me. And that's pretty much the OS stance. So remember the buff that you get for taking your weapon out. You get an attack buff for taking your weapon out. You get a defensive buff to being grabbed. So if you're grabbed within those 5 seconds, you take less damage. You can kind of lock if you do something like that. I don't know if they'll take it away, but I mean, it's still hard to do. You can run out of that, you know. It'd be very hard to spam that over and over and over. So what you can do is put a weapon out and then go into OS, and you get bonus damage. It's not really that much to really have the 3 seconds off, but you can't go into OS and get the buff of damage. It doesn't work. You have to pull it out first. If you go back to the stance though, so if we go to defensive, you get the buff reactivated. So, you know, if you want to go back to your regular stance, just do the same command for that stance again, and you'll go back to your regular stance. And one move I almost forgot was this one. So you could actually combo that as well. Like that. You could do that as well. Okay. So to recap, down Z is the spin, right Z or left Z is the stab, up Z is the jump attack, and then you get movement speed when you add this one. And then you can also get defensive stance, and you can swap your posture by pressing Z. Pretty simple. Let's move on to his second job. This is gonna be a long video, so buckle in. All right, so his second job, he has Grand Force, he has Bite Off, he has Breakthrough, he has Abyss. If you ever want to know if it's a tech ability versus a non-tech ability, it'll say Special, and then it will say Tech, which is Technique. Okay, that's how you know. So we'll talk about this first row first, and then we'll go ahead and talk about his other rows down there. I was never really a fan of the way Zero looked in this, but that's the first one. As you see, it poisons them, it slows them. Then you also have Bite Off. It knocks them back super, super far. Then you have the next one. And you have Abyss. That's pretty much all his abilities that he has that are special abilities in his second job. Now let's talk about some of his tech abilities. So we have Orchid. It does AP variation and an HP variation. It absorbs AP or it absorbs HP. Or you can just have it do damage. I mean, obviously, it's either or. I wouldn't recommend maxing these two if you don't want them. If you don't care. I always never want to care about it. If you don't care, save your points and get it into other things first. Once again, this will allow you to increase absorption. So once again, if you don't care about it, skip it. And then you do need this one to get a mid, and we'll talk about a mid when we get into the game. But it makes you invincible, basically, for a little bit. We have Whirlwind, another tech ability, and then we have Increase. So Increase gives you a buff depending on what stance you're in. So when you're in a sword stance, it reduces the amount of AP that you'll use on abilities if you use it while you're in sword stance. If you're in defensive stance, you'll gain more HP. If you use it in OS stance, so offensive stance, you'll get a damage buff. If you leave any of those stances while any of these buffs are activated, you will lose the buff. We have Orchid. Then we have a mid. You can't use any abilities, but you can attack. You can't even go into your like other stances either. You're kind of just stuck, but you can attack. Then you have the Whirlwind. And then you have Increase. So it'll look like that. And the buff is different colors. So sword stance, the color for it is blue. Defensive stance, the color for it is green. And then for OS stance, the color for it is red. And that helps you kind of identify which stance you're in when you're doing it. So now we have third job. So we have Mega Slash. We have two-hand smash. A mid basically reduces the cooldown of a mid. This is a tech ability, and we'll talk about it more once we're in the game. And so these are the buffs that I was talking about. When you pull your weapon out, you get little buffs and whatnot. These are the buffs. I just wanted to talk about it before we got this far, so we don't have to revisit it. This is an ability called Grandark's Domination. So we'll take a look at that once we get into it. Whew. Once again, we have more stuff for his sword stances. I don't really want to waste too much time on it because I don't want to keep you guys here for a long time. But pretty much, they're just extra combos, okay? So, like I said, I don't want to keep you here for that long, so I'm going to skip out on it. In the future, if you guys do want to see all of his stuff, let me know, and I'll do that for other characters, but I don't want to waste a lot of time doing the same thing, which is basically just showing you more combos and more buffs to your stuff, okay? You'll see it when you get it. I just don't, like I said, I don't want to waste too much time. All right, so Zero has something where Grandark's Domination, where he continues to swing, and as you see, his combo does look a little bit different. I'm doing different things. As you see, it's added stuff to it. The Grandark's Domination allows for you to use special abilities, be a little bit quicker, you're faster movement, you're able to you see, you're able to do a lot with this thing now. So, just keep that in mind. All right, so I'll show you the abilities. So this is the first one. Adds a little shockwave. Okay. Here's the second one. Adds like a little bit more of an explosion. Bottom's a little bit different too. All right, then we have this one. All right, it's a little bit bigger, does a little bit more damage, and then we have this one. And all of his abilities pretty much change like that. And you have to make sure you have that activated before they do change like that. Oh, I didn't do Abyss. I guess I'll show you guys what Abyss looks like. These also change as well. Alright, so we have this one. Looks kind of like Canavan Strike. Then we also have this one. It allows us to spin and like move around as we're spinning. And then it comes out like that. And then we also have this one. Come on. Where it's way bigger and does more damage. I was hoping I could get it out before the bar hit out. So this is the regular two-hand smash, as you see. And then the second bar here, it's a little different as well. Then we have this ability called Unique. You'll basically do something in whatever stance you're in. This one fires a little wave. Then we have a defensive stance, and we'll show it here, where it'll stun whoever he hits. It's a cooldown of 5 seconds, so you can get really fancy with your combos. And then you have the OS version, so you can basically snare everybody that is close to you. It's really crazy, honestly. Once again, he's very difficult to use because he's simple, but everything can become so complex once you start adding all of this stuff together. So if you are going to put time into him for PvP, you really need to put some time into him. If it's for PvE, you know, dungeoning, just have fun. It doesn't really matter how effective you are with this stuff. It's not like that when you're coming for PvP. Just throw your sword around. All right, now the big kahuna, Advancer, the 4th job. So with the 4th job, we'll just kind of add all this stuff. He gets new combo attacks. This will allow for him to have jump attacks and dash attacks during his domination mode, which is what you see me doing, flying around and stuff. Shockwave just has a little barrier in front of you. He'll do like a little shockwave. And then if you're a fatal, you press XX during fatal and you will get some HP back, so you won't be fatal anymore. This is a tech ability. This is a tech ability. We'll go over the 3 skills as well. And then we'll go over the other 3 abilities too, okay? This is a teleport. This is just a jump attack. When you change your stance, you deal damage in an area around you. And these are just little buffs to what you're doing. And this one doesn't matter what stance you're in. Whenever you get grabbed, you will take reduced damage from grabs. All right, so as you see, it's like a little shockwave right there. And that will knock people back. I can't really go into fatal in practice mode, so we're not going to go in fatal. All right, so the first thing to note is that our attacks are different. You have a little spike, right? And that kind of like pulls you to me. My dash attack is different. As you see, it's not that little spin dash attack that you have with a little ball in front of you. And also you have the ability to roll. Holy! They put a 12-second cooldown on his roll? Yo, that's so good. Okay, a lot of you guys might be wondering why I would want that. It was stupid. He basically was Jhin. It was dumb. The only reason why I'm saying it was stupid is because it didn't have Zero's identity. You're rolling around like Jhin, you're not playing Zero. That's such a good freaking nerve. Dude, KOG, if you're watching, you did justice to my boy. You didn't hurt him too much, but you also made it so that he couldn't be abused. Whoever worked on Zero, you make me want to cry. Anyway, back to the point. So we have the tech ability, which kind of drills and brings him to you. You have that, which is kind of just a jump attack on the ground. Then you have your first bar right here. Then you have your second bar. And then you have your third bar. Woo! This is my boy. And then we have the teleport with the ZX thing. Let me show you. You see? You could teleport. I like that that's a lower cooldown because it's not really abusable as the roll would be. So that's pretty good. And then these last 3 upgraded abilities, you have to have your weapon out. Remember that trick that we talked about. If you pull your weapon out already, he doesn't take it out. So with this job, it's funny because it kind of capitalized on having your weapon out. So it's training you to do that little trick that I taught you, where you would pull the weapon out and get it done faster. Right? It's really cool how they did that. They like slid it in like, okay, we noticed that you guys are doing it. It's like, this is a little cool technique. Let me teach you how. And I think they did that with a couple other characters too. So that's pretty dope. Okay, anyway, but you have to have your weapon out before you use them. So I'll just have my weapon out so you guys can see it without doing that. Okay, and then you have your last ability here. Remember, make sure your weapon is out. If your weapon is not out, it'll just default use the first one. See? So you got to make sure your weapon is out. That way he will use the right thing, okay? So that's pretty much it to Zero. Like I said, I could have gone in depth with a lot more of this stuff, but there was just no reason to. And you guys already seen, like I said, the rest is just kind of buffs and different combos that he has. And you guys can just do that on your own. It wasn't worth wasting 5 or 10 more extra minutes talking about all of it. It's not that complicated at all. So thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed, hit that thumbs up. Of course, if you guys want to join that Poppin' Ultimate Lofton Club, these type of videos do take a long time to do and a lot of time to edit. But I really do want to get it out to you guys. If you guys want to help support what I do and you guys really enjoy my content, I want to continue to see it keep coming out. That join button down below is where you want to go. It really helps a lot. As I always say, thank you for what? Happen often. Will often.